is joy. Where there is peace, there is joy. I can feel your presence, cleanse and purify my heart. I am one with all. I am one with all. I am one with all. Kindness and love flows through me. I see only love. Where there is love, there is peace. Love restores peace on earth. Love restores peace on earth.
Good morning, everyone. Norma and I just returned from a family reunion that took place in Sedona, Arizona. Our oldest son, Del, rented a house with a swimming pool in Sedona, Arizona, so that we could have our family gathering this year for 5 days. And we have done this just about every year, and not in the same area. But we had been to Sedona before, and Sedona is a beautiful, beautiful place, filled with a natural red rock element, which is artistic. If you're in Sedona, there's hardly any direction you can look in that isn't a postcard. So beautiful. Anyway, Sedona has 4 spiritual vortexes that for centuries were areas that the native people, Native Americans, used for ceremonies. These days, those 4 vortexes of high energy are tourist attractions mostly, and but we had some amazing, wonderful experiences in that area. We went for some scenic hikes in the area, and 1 or 2 went to the vortex and meditated. Can we have some of these photos? I took a couple of snapshots. This is us walking up the trail toward a particular area that is considered to have a feminine vortex. And just this whole area is so beautiful because it is so clear and clean. The air is so clear, you taste the oxygen in it. And that's where we're heading. And that trail actually ascends. There's a trail that ascends to the top of one of these red rock formations. That's the one we were on. Yeah, that's probably where we're headed, right there. You have to have enough water with you to keep from really experiencing heat stroke. The temperature outside on these hikes we took, and it was that way for almost the entire week, the temperature outside is 100 or over. It's just amazing heat coming from that. So you need plenty of water, and you have to take it in stride where you're going. This is a place called Slide Rock, which is near Sedona. And here our children and grandchildren, we took them there because it's a great place to swim, and there's some cliffs that you can jump off of into the deep water. And it's called Slide Rock because there are areas there where the rock has got so much moss on it, you can just slide through it. That's the pool we had at our home, which gives you some pause to think, why would we ever go out on a hike in 103-degree heat with a pool like that right next to us in our home where we were? So we had a great time, and as usual, we had some phenomenal conversations we don't have many opportunities where we have all of the people together in the family, because everyone in our family is so personally busy doing the things that they do, and mostly what they do is involved in some positive profession or some positive process of helping to make life more worth living for others as well as themselves. So we don't have many times where we can actually say, we're all going to get together this week. It's not an easy thing to do because the commitments are such. But we manage to do that. Whenever we do that, we have these really great, quite often intense conversations about the meaning of life and the challenges of life, and how each of us can bring up his or her particular process now where he or she is at, and seeking to bring about more healing into the earth. And so we have these wonderful conversations. Some of the interesting points that were brought up, and these conversations are quite often, they're off the charts as far as what normal people might be talking. We talk about, we'll get into a conversation about the challenges in the world today. We'll get on the subject of evil, and then we'll seek to come up with a clear and simple definition of evil. And, well, of course, this definition is not something that hasn't been shared here in Unity. Evil is a denial of oneness. Evil is an ego-centered illusion of separation that underlies all of mankind's inhumanity to mankind. In other words, and the conversation rolls around, in other words, you'd almost have to define evil as ignorance, because one who is involved in the illusion of separation and entertaining loveless thoughts and loveless actions has no awareness how that actually affects his or her own life, his or her own experiences. So it has to be defined in the end as a colossal ignorance of the truth. And then we get on to things like what my oldest son and younger son are dealing with right now. Well, my oldest son, Dell, was a communication manager for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s political presidential campaign. And after it was over, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and my son coined the phrase, "Make America Healthy Again." And actually, I don't think America could be made great again unless America became healthy again. And really, what is the most unhealthy thing about America is the power that personal self-interests have in inculcating programs that are detrimental to health itself. So we have these grand organizations, we even have government organizations who have fallen into a limited perspective in which what they are advocating for people's health is really detrimental to health, because they operate from a very limited definition of life. There is those definitions, and it's not all people involved in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not talking about all of them. Most of them believe they're doing their best for the people, that they really want to help people get well, overcome sickness. But their definition of life limits them to a limited objective observation instead of a divine subjective observation, which is the difference where our family deviates or separates from the natural process of intellectual definition, because we don't see that is going to be of any real use in healing people of disease. And let me try to explain how we get on this subject. That Del, for the most part, in what he does, because he's under the gaze of the media, you consider him somewhat of a figure in, people know him mostly in the anti-vaccination movement, but he's really involved in a number of other things having to do with a person's health. And from his perspective, he always uses science to relate the facts about exercise and diet and health, which are very necessary, and they have some influence on people. But in our family and the way we've lived and carried on our lives, we don't leave it there. We believe that that's a good way of representing or presenting something to people to help them understand health. But with us, that beginning leads to faith in their own well-being, defined from within them by their own core divine nature. So that you start off with the scientific facts of diet and health as it's been researched, but you wind up really helping people get into some internal introspective element that accesses the core nature that every human being has, which you could call God or Christ within. And in that core nature, you will get things that will come forth in your understanding that will lead you through and carry you through and support you through any type of healing process that you're involved with. And we don't feel that without that, without bringing people to the realization that introspection and meditation is a very important part of the healing process, we don't believe that without that, the healing will be sustained. In other words, you might gain some advantages, but you will lose them because there's a higher healing that has to take place. The higher healing is of the mind. There has to be a healing of the mind, especially in our Western culture. For the mind has been conditioned to follow a definition of life that is flawed. That definition of life is almost strictly material. It seems to present life as filled with human beings who are strictly physical, but they have a brain in which they can figure things out. That particular idea or definition of life is flawed and will never deliver humanity from its suffering. So we're looking, and I'm saying these conversations go on for hours, and we have food and a glass of wine, and we'll go into the pool, come back, dry off, continue the conversations. Where I don't know why I don't tape these conversations, because I think they would be of real value. Listening to the different perspectives coming from the different family members and their points of view, even our grandchildren will occasionally add their point of view on something. So it's very, very opening as far as understanding. But we do come down to this ideal, which is a very important element. And so even if you speak about love in a spiritual sense, it's not too far away to speak about healing love, or love's healing power. And it's the kind of love that is not manufactured in the intellect. It's the kind of love that flows freely from one's core nature. So as one enters into these spiritual practices, one's core nature becomes more and more evident and more capable of transforming the thinking of the mind. So that is where the bottom line healing must occur if we're going to transcend the incredible amount of suffering that human beings impose upon themselves through ignorance of their divine nature. And we had someone in the conversation said, well, if you're trying to present this, you have to present it on a level of faith. Because without faith, you can't find yourself in doing things that the world is in denial of. So it is a faith element that we are involved in speaking about. And it's necessary to have faith, and it will lead you to this transformation of which we speak. At one point, someone said, without faith, there's a curious point made. If you look at life in the world without looking at it through the eyes of faith, you're looking at what could be defined as a torture chamber. Somebody brought it up in those terms. There is so much suffering and so many limited ways of going about healing that suffering, and so many misguided ways to somehow capitalize on that suffering. And even though I say I believe the majority of people involved in the industries, the pharmaceutical industries and the health industries, actually believe in trying to help people, I do believe there is an element in those industries that is not well-meaning, that have only the bottom line, the almighty dollar, in their heart of hearts, and that's what they are seeking. So there's a lot of, I think, misinformation that is capable of getting through, but is not well-meaning, and it's not conducive toward healing. So we discuss these things because everyone in our family is involved in healing, or healing love, or the healing power of love, which comes down to divine healing. You could call it spiritual healing, because we practice that in our lives. Our children practiced that. They practiced meditation as they were growing up. They meditated with us. We did introspection and dream interpretation growing up. So it's not something that we just unawares came into. It's something we have taken upon ourselves. Norma and I and our children and our grandchildren now being taught by their mothers and fathers who we taught are into meditation. And I think today when we speak about finding our way into this divine level of consciousness, it's a lot easier today because meditation has become a common way of understanding how to improve your life. It's not as distant from the general understanding as it was years and years ago when Norma and I first started, and even before us, there was always a kind of shadowy, dark visage placed around the idea. Meditation was in some way in itself evil. But over these years now, and in our present time, meditation has become more and more a common acceptance and a practice by many, many people from many, many different ways. So it's not that difficult to get involved in personal transformation and coming into the divine intelligence and love that is our calling. It is the destiny of anyone who seeks the truth in an effort to be free of suffering. Can we have this first PowerPoint, please? This is from a book titled The Door to Everything by Ruby Nelson. You can read this on page 46 in that book. Imagine what a wonderful place the earth would be when all, and by the way, Ruby Nelson speaks as one channeling God in the first person. So her book is God in the first person. Imagine what a wonderful place the earth will be when all my children learn the truth about their relationship to me and begin to weave it into their every thought and act. Imagine how easily lives will change, how easily the dove of peace can spread her white wings and settle down over the planet. Behold, I make all things new, including your bodies, my holy temples, which will be transmuted into the invisible when they are filled with my spirit. For this spirit is potent, and no one single organism can open to receive it and remain unchanged. These words are so pointedly true that they pierce the resistance that we have grown up with against the idea of divine or holy awareness. So let's take this back again. We can go through this again. Imagine what a wonderful place the earth will be when all my children learn the truth about their relationship to me and begin to weave it into their every thought and act. Imagine how easily the dove of peace can spread her white wings and settle down over the planet. Behold, I make all things new, including your bodies, my holy temples, which will be transmuted. You can take that back again, I missed that word. Transmuted into the invisible when they are filled with my Spirit. For this Spirit is potent, and not one single organism can open to receive it and remain unchanged. To be open and receive it is what we do in the practice of introspection, meditation. You see, in the outer directed world that we were conditioned to believe in, we look upon conditions and circumstances arising, and we have no relationship to them. They arise, the conditions, the circumstances in which we find ourselves, they come up, but we don't seem or think that we have any relationship to them. So we go about judging them and then reacting accordingly. If they seem to fit with what we want, we go along with them and have some momentary peace. But if they're not in keeping with what we're seeking or wanting, we are at odds with them, and we hold negative emotions, negative feelings, and we take out negative action in relationship to them. You have to see how the transformation from that thinking is required to come into spiritual healing or true healing. There has to be some introspection, some meditation to allow the Spirit of Truth to reveal that you are complicit in the conditions and circumstances and how you react to them. And you don't have to have adverse conditions and circumstances running through your life over and over again. You could become enlightened. The masters don't view life as the world views life, because they have entered into the transformation and allowed the divine core nature to be the most powerful word that comes into their consciousness. Can we have this next PowerPoint, please? This is the door to everything, page 49. My word grows vigorously in your consciousness once it gets a firm foothold, but it does need some care to keep it healthy. It needs some care to keep it healthy. It needs to be watered with your faith, lest it should wither and dry up. And it responds mightily when nourished with your prayers. However, as you continue to apply faith in prayer, you must be patient and leave the rest to me. Can we take this back again, please? Again, this is the truth. You wound up thinking in terms of, okay, if you think like the world thinks, when I die and go to heaven, if I've done enough good things, I'll get into heaven, and then you'll have to come to understand what it's like to be a person or a being who lives in heaven. And then you'd have to hear this and know it to be true, because this is the truth of heaven. This is the truth that brings your consciousness into heaven. My word grows vigorously in your consciousness once it gets a firm foothold, but it does need some care to keep it healthy. It needs some care to keep it healthy. It needs to be watered with your faith, lest it should wither and dry up, and it responds mightily when nourished with your prayers. However, as you continue to apply faith in prayer, you must be patient and leave the rest to me. This idea of leaving the rest to me is that deviation our family takes from strictly intellectual awareness of, and then allowing your core nature to come through and begin to re-energize cells atoms in your physical body. Re-energize your awareness, your mind, your feeling, your attitude, your outlook. You become a completely changed, you're made new again by the Word of God that resides in every human being. We'll conclude this with this last PowerPoint. Page 62, Door to Everything. Your sacred seed, your spark of life, awaits only the cooperation of your totally still heart center. When you have extended this cooperation, the sacred seed will begin to grow to fulfill its cosmic pattern. You have much to gain by learning to appreciate your spark of life. This spark of life is more than just the human consciousness you thought yourself to be. This spark of life is the very light of Christ, which I wedded to you, and from which you cannot possibly be divorced. We'll take this back again, please. Your sacred seed, your spark of life, awaits only the cooperation of your totally still heart center. When you have extended this cooperation, the sacred seed will begin to grow to fulfill its cosmic pattern. You have much to gain by learning to appreciate your spark of life. The spark of life is more than just the human consciousness you thought yourself to be. This spark of life is the very light of Christ, which I wedded to you, and from which you cannot possibly be divorced. Let's begin our meditation by taking a couple of deep breaths. With each breath, give yourself permission to be okay. Just know you have full permission from the universe to be absolutely healthy in body, in mind, in spirit. Learning how to breathe, to be still, and open to that refined level of peace, joy, harmony, healing, and love. Let's take that as our mantra, bringing it to mind. I am open to the harmony, the healing, the peace, the joy, and the health of life. I am open to the harmony, healing, peace, joy, and health of true life. I am open to the harmony, healing, peace, joy, health of true life. As we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space, let us go forth with a greater determination to be awake in the process of living. For this opportunity, in every moment, we give thanks. To this, we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. And as we're preparing to do that, I want to remind you that we have a discussion following this service every Sunday. That discussion takes place in the bookstore. Has an area with folding chairs circled around. If you want to, you can go over into Fellowship Hall and get a cup of tea or some treats, and then come on over anyway. So to all of you that are watching this online, if you're tuning in looking for inspiration to lift your life and help you to live more effectively, beautifully, harmoniously, then also make yourself a part of the process, which is one, by tithing something to Unity of Boulder. So I invite you to do that and make yourself a more intrinsic part of the transformation you are seeking. To everyone here, my thanks to those of you that are recurring tithers. You make our lives a lot easier by tithing regularly from your credit cards. And so my thanks go out to you. And everyone here can bring into their hands whatever gift they'd like to make today to Unity of Boulder, and bless them with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
I am thankful for each breath I take. Is a miracle of life. I am thankful for each breath I take. Is a miracle of life. Oh.
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of Truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate this tithe to the victory of the Spirit of Truth. Amen. Do we have any special occasions taking place this week?
The gift store is open, and there's wonderful gifts in there if you ever have any need. And then we have also books that are New Thought books.
Right. My thanks goes out to Brandon, who is our weekly guitarist, and his wife, Cassie, who took over running this organization while we were away for this week. And I appreciate that they stepped in to do that for us and give us the opportunity to get together for this reunion. They're wonderful people and really talented people. So our thanks goes out to Brandon and Cassie, and of course Heather, who holds the office line.
She's the rock.
The rock of the office. All right, so I'll see all of you that are interested in discussing anything over in the bookstore. Have an amazingly healing day.